Look at that! They revised the giant UA. I'm actually excited for this. Today I'm going to talk about backgrounds and feats that have to do with giants. And one wild card. The cartomancer feat, because the other video had too many of them already. Welcome to Pack Tactics, where everyone is a giant. Or uses cards, I guess. There's two backgrounds that give you giant feats. First is Giant Foundling, which gives you Strike of the Giants. And second is Rune Carver, which gives you Rune Carver Apprentice. You can pick up the feats through Custom Lineage and Variant Human too, but otherwise you have to wait until you get to level 4 or later. I'll start with Rune Carver Apprentice and Rune Carver Adept, for which you need Rune Carver Apprentice. And then I'll move to Strike of the Giants with all the other chain feats. Rune Carver Apprentice is very similar to past UA. A couple of changes are that you now also get to cast Comprehend Languages once for free and then with spell slots. Besides losing good options, this seems like a buff because you can choose 2 different spells instead of just one. And you get to swap them around when you level, but I don't really see any good contenders for a pick beyond command. Like before they had Goodberry, Bless, and Shield, but that's all gone. I also wonder if they meant to write that you can infuse 2 objects instead of 1, because it seems a bit odd that you only have 1 instead of 2. If you have Rune Carver Apprentice, you can pick up Rune Carver Adept at level 4 or later. It's a half feat that gives you +1 to ability score you choose for Rune Carver Apprentice, and adds some boons for your spell casting. If you cast your Rune Carver Apprentice spell, or a spell of presumably the same spell school, the wording's a little bit weird. You get to choose out of 3 different effects, proficiency times per long rest. Either you give someone 1 attack with advantage, some temporary hit points, 4 at level 4 to a max of 20 at level 20, or you give them some extra speed that doesn't provoke opportunity attacks, which lasts for 1 turn. These effects are not strong. Advantage is not hard to come by. There are way better sources for temporary hit points, and the speed one is only half decent. I know this has versatility, but it doesn't make up for the fact that they are not very good. I would rather pick up something like Inspiring Leader, Find Familiar, or even just Longstrider through Rune Carver Apprentice. That's decent enough. Balance isn't my only issue here though, it's also really annoying bookkeep. It might be just me, but I don't memorize the schools my spells belong to. Like, I can't tell you what school Goodberry is in without looking it up. Just make it any spell you cast, honestly. They really don't need to make this so complicated. Also, by the way, it can only be used proficiency times per long rest. Now for Strike of the Giants. This has a lot of text, so make sure to pause the video if you want to read the feature. I'm speedrunning. You pick 1 out of 6 giant origins, and then you use your bonus action, a proficiency times per long rest, to get extra damage and an extra effect on a hit within a minute, if you use a melee or throw weapon. The minute thing seems a bit too much of a limitation, but whatever. First option is Hill Giant. If you want to use this, you are probably a melee marshal. You use your bonus action to potentially give your allies advantage on attacks, if they too are in melee. Once you get extra attack, you can make use out of the advantage too, because right now, you need to hit them before you knock them prone. So they could just stand up before your turn. This might be okay depending on your allies, but it's not fantastic. Stone Giant. If your allies set up very scary AoEs like web or spike growth, then this can be decent because you can push enemies into it. Frost Giant. Constitution saves are usually not great, but if you have a weapon with the reach property or are using something like javelins, this can potentially disable an enemy for 1 round if they don't have any range options. This is kind of like Rhymes Binding Ice, but for 1 person. Fire Giants. It gets no additional feature. Instead, you do more damage. You do a D8 instead of a D6. Whoop-de-doo. Cloud Giants. This one gets less damage. Maybe they thought the feature was stronger than the others. But for damage, this one is worse than Hill Giant because only you get the benefit of being an unseen attacker. And for defense, they'll likely just swap to another target for 1 turn. I guess this allows you to walk away and not take opportunity attack. But that's about all it has over the Hill Giant option. I want to throw a bone. This is called Cloud Giant. Wouldn't it be better if this activated an emergent emergency fog cloud. This would help the melee marshal more in a pack tactics fight or flanking game by making everything a straight roll. I don't get it, but whatever. Lastly, storm giants. This one sounded better to me at first, but after some thought, I realized it's not as good as it sounds. At level 1, enemies have one attack, so it only affects one attack. Eventually, you'll be up against enemies with strong multi-attacks, but at that point, still have high con saves. This is pretty sucky. The next 6 features require you to pick up Strike of the Giants of the same type. I'll go through them in the same order as I did for Strike of the Giants. Okay, Vigor of the Hill Giants. This is a half feat, but the only option is to increase con, so make sure this fits with your build. It's very similar to its old iteration, but they added the ASI, and the Iron Stomach is now based on hit dice, not healing spells. Here is a graph of how many hit points you can expect this to give you in a day. I assume you want to have all your hit dice the following day, so you don't use more than half. You have 3 short rests, and you have +3 constitution. So it starts at 10 and ends at 27. That's better than the old UA where we got 6 hit points at level 4 and 18 at level 20. It's still not very good, but at least this feat teaches us to eat our good berries. Does good berry count as food? Because I've been on a good berry diet now for a year, and I'm fine.
Kobold, you only eat good berry ice cream.
Gator, I don't only eat good berry ice cream. You make me sound like I'm really fat or something. Next is Keenness of the Storm Giants. This is a half feat. You get to pick one of Strength, Constitution, and Wisdom. Pretty okay options. The reason why you pick this is for the Dark Vision plus ASI. The other effect is just not very good. If you got to use this with Magic Stone as part of the bonus action, I would think better of it, but right now, not worth it. Just a quick comparison at level 5 against 15 AC and a 60% chance to succeed on the strength save without taking into account opportunity attack part of Polar Master. You would do very similar damage by using a glaive compared to taking this feat instead of palm, and using a great sword if you use Great Weapon Master. But this damage is only comparable on the round you use this bonus action, which is only proficiency times per long rest. I know others might benefit from the enemy being prone, but I don't really see this being very big. Next is Fury of the Frost Giant. Fury of the Frost Giant. Another half feat with the same +1 to Strength, Constitution, or Wisdom. Additionally, you get cold resistance and a speed debuff when you hit them with an attack roll, proficiency times per long rest. Generally, I imagine it's best to use this when you are in melee because you can kite them afterwards and they wouldn't be able to catch up. If they are ranged, they probably don't really care too much. It's okay. Ember of the Fire Giant works the same as the last two with the ASI parts. You also get fire resistance, which is good. With a pretty awesome extra effect, the ability to choose when you want to use this, which you can decide based on the expected value of attacking someone versus hitting multiple people with your AoE effect, allows for an interesting decision making for a marshal. I love this. I want to see more of these kind of options. I think this is a sign that the wizards watch my content. This is probably the best so far, but I think they nerfed the fire option in Strike of the Giants to make this better, which kinda sucks. But it is what it is. This is the step towards the right direction. This is what I've wanted from marshals for a long time. Like, if you remove the prerequisites and boosted damage and keep the blinded, then it's perfect. I'm very happy. Guile of the Cloud Giants. This is a half feat with the choice of Dexterity, Constitution, or Charisma. The additional feature they get is a reactionary Misty Step proficiency times per long rest. I suggest picking up Fate Touch instead because it gets you out of way more pickles than this. Like, for example, Wall of Force, especially because the teleport comes after the damage. Technically, you can stab yourself if you are in a Wall of Force and get out, to be fair, but I don't really like that compared to Misty Step. But also, Fate Touch gives you another spell. It gives more stuff. Last giant feat, Soul of the Storm Giants. Another half feat. and you can increase a mental stat with it. I talked about this in the old UA, but I kind of underrated it, and I got called out for it. This basically allows you to dodge as a bonus action, a proficiency bonus number of times per long rest. By a stretch, you could even compare this to quicken meta magic proficiency times per long rest, because the best use there is to dodge as your action afterwards. It's okay. Now for the wild card! Instead of needing a feat, you need to be a sorcerer, warlock, or wizard. I assumed bard would be part of this list, but I guess they've left that in the dust. Since when did bards play with cards anyways? It's not like they play poker. It's not like they have College of Spirits bard where they have official art of somebody actually holding cards and it's a bard. No. It's least likely that a bard will play cards. To be serious, I think they just forgot. I love the flavor of cartomancer, but it is pretty sad in reality. It has 3 features, and I'll go through them one by one. The first feature allows you to use cards as a spell focus, and when you use it as such, you can add d4 to 1 damage roll proficiency times per long rest. People were quick to point out potential interactions with magic missile, but the big thing is that this requires you to use your spellcasting focus. That means the spell must have a material component, and it can't be costly or consumed, because at that point you can't replace it with a spellcasting focus. I'll link a good article to this in the comments. I don't have a video on this. Technically, you can pick up levels in Armor Artificer. Artificers require material components on all spells, and Armorer gets Magic Missile, but that sounds like a meme build to me. For your convenience, I made a list of all spells you could potentially use together with this feature. Enjoy! If you ask me, this amount of damage is basically worthless. The second feature is basically just fluff. It really isn't a big deal. The third feature is the only one that's sort of good, but the wording is really bad, that you can use the spell slots to put a spell into a card, and as a bonus action you can release the spell later on. This is basically another feat that gives you a dodge for the cost of a bonus action, but only once per long rest. If it doesn't require a spell slot, I would change my mind, but I really can't tell what the intention here actually is. One shimmering light in the dark is that the cards have no ending condition except for using them, which means you could collect a lot of them during downtime. But I'm guessing that isn't intended. Shout out to Kelly LA for pointing that out. But at least this doesn't have a preliminary feat, but still disappointing really. I want this to be good though because I loved the idea. That's it for the feats. Next is the magic. I hope I earned your subscription and support on Patreon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye!